how to save money for a house while renting. All right, guys, we're going to talk all about how you can save money for a house while you are renting. And we're going to talk about a few different strategies and some things you can actually think about. So there's some things that people don't realize, and that's getting the seller to pay some of your closing costs. And let me explain. Let me map this out so we can be on the same page together. So here's one of the things that you can do is you can actually get the seller to pay for your closing costs, which can help. So typically, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're going to want to get an FHA loan. Okay, the reason is FHA has the lowest down payment, which is at 3% down payment. So if you're going to buy a house for $100,000, you're going to have to come up with $3,000. But there's some additional costs here that a lot of people don't think about, and that's loan closing costs. And typically, you're going to have another 3 to 3.5% in loans closing costs, which is another let's just call it $3,000. Let's just keep our math really simple. Well, you may say, how am I going to come up with $6,000 while I'm renting? Well, the easiest way to come up with that is get somebody else to pay for it. And basically what you do is you get the seller to pay for your closing costs up to 3%. And FHA will actually allow that. Let's talk about how this actually works. So let's say you go and find this beautiful home and the seller wants $200,000 for the house. And you end up agreeing, let's say you negotiate, let's say they want 220, and you end up agreeing and you end up saying, I'll buy this house for $200,000, okay? But what happens is if you make your offer and say, we want you to also pay 3% of the closing costs on behalf of the seller, which means I no longer have to pay this. Let's just use $100,000. So let's say at the end of the day, the seller actually wants $100,000 and you counter back and say, you know what? I'll actually give you $103,000 as long as you pay $3,000 of seller or of buyer closing costs. Closing costs. And they say, well, that's fine because I wanted $100,000. What happens in this instance is you as the buyer are just getting a loan for $3,000 or more. So instead of paying the $3,000 up front, you are financing that over the period of 30 years, which actually works out okay because those payments are relatively inexpensive and it enables you to get into a house a lot quicker than you normally would be able to. And this is how most people actually do this, which is ask the seller to pay your closing costs. Well, why would the seller pay the closing costs? Because you're going to pay him more money than what he was wanting to get anyway. So if you find out how much the seller want for the house, maybe they want, $150,000 and you guys negotiate and you come and he's like, okay, I will take 140. They'll say, great, you know what? Let's just bump that up a little bit. Let's just bump that up to say 145 and you pay 3% in my closing costs for the buyer, which you're basically financing in a loan. So that cuts down what you have to come up with in half. So you have 50% less you have to come up with in this example. So now the issue is how do you come up with this amount of money? The 3% down that you actually have to come up with rather than the 6% down because we cut it in half by getting the seller to pay for those things for us. Well, there's a couple of ways. Let me change pens here. There's a couple of ways. So number one, and this is probably not the most popular, but this is live on less. Okay, guys, the secret to creating wealth is living on less than you actually make. Whether you make $100,000 or you make $20,000, you've got to live on less than you make. And so you take that money that you're living less on and you set that away. So maybe you go through and say, we're going to change some things that we're going to purchase, or we're going to buy less, or we're going to cut some things out of our budget, because there's got to be some sacrifices here. Because there's only two ways for you to come up with this money. You're going to either have to spend less or you're going to have to make more. And we're going to talk about both sides of that. But spending less is basically going through and saying, what can we save money on? And we'll put that money towards buying a house, which only works if buying a house is important enough to you, more important than that latte you buy in the morning, or more important than that whatever you're paying for. Maybe it's a gym membership and you're like, we'll just exercise outside instead of having a gym membership. I don't know what it is, but that's what you have to do, is you have to take a hard look at things, because again, you've got to cut costs, you got to increase income in order for you to save money. And wealth is defined by how much money you're saving versus how much money you actually make. So the second way you can talk about this is actually some ways that you can make some additional income. This could be doing DoorDash or doing Lyft or Uber, or it could be picking up some odd work over the weekend, or it could be selling some things. Whatever the case is, there's multiple ways to do this, but you have got to increase some income, and you can do that, make a few $100s extra a month. Let's just jump back here. I mean, let's say that you made an extra $500 a month. You could get to that 3,000 goal in 6 months by picking up some Uber or some DoorDash or something else like that. Now, this doesn't mean you've got to do this for the rest of your life, guys. This means you're doing it for a period of time so you can actually get into the house. You're not going to be using this income to qualify for the house. You're using this income to help establish a down payment. You get the seller to pay for the closing costs by increasing that offer, financing that in the loan. You do some odd jobs or some weekend gigs for the next year, let's say, in order to get enough money for a down payment, or you reduce some of your expenses and decide what are some things can we get rid of so we can set more money aside. So again, there's two ways: increase your income or decrease your expenses. But the biggest way is to get the seller to pay for half of it by including that in the loan and putting that as part of the offer. Now, if you've been enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. If you'd like to get a copy of my book, How to Get More Money Than You Can Ever Handle, I'll send you an e-copy of that absolutely for free. Just text me your email address to 435-294-0433. I also have a video on how much money should I save up to flip a house. I'll link that up here. And also, I've got a blog post. Is earnest money the same as a down payment? You're going to want to read up on that. I'll put it in the notes as well. Also, if you're not currently a subscriber, jump on there, become a subscriber, hit the bell notification. If you do, you'll get notified of our live cast that we do every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we give away a shirt. Oh boy. We give away a shirt similar to this every single Tuesday. If you'd like to be one of our t-shirt winners, absolutely for free, join us for a live cast Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Otherwise, make it a very profitable day, and bye for now.